Good afternoon and welcome to Wednesday, which is day 6 of IF Milton Keynes 2012. And I think we're in number 5 or number 6 of the Talking Shop series of discussions with artists and around the arts that we've commissioned or presenting in the festival or issues that they're touched on. I'm very pleased today to be joined on the stage by Esther Simpson, and Esther is one of the 2 co-artistic directors of Metro Bulo Dodo, a company which I'm sure she'll say a little bit about in a minute, but a company that I've known since Fib 2004, which is 8 years.
We're so good at maths.
And I've followed their work since that time. So it's been a great pleasure to be able to commission a project from them, especially for a place, especially for Escape here at Milton Keynes as part of IF. And we'll get on quite quickly to talking about that commission. But first of all, we're just going to sort of open it up to give a sense of context in terms of where Metro Bulo Dodo come from in terms of their practice I'll just start with that, and then I've got a second question already, so just tell us a little bit about the sort of history of Metro Bulo Dodo.
Okay, basically I met Paul at university, at Lancaster University, and we were both studying theatre, and we very much started off as a theatre company. So we performed in sort of your black box spaces, small scale art centres, and we would create our own performances, so devised pieces. And we did that in a very sort of traditional way. The sort of method is that you tend to make your shows in the summer, and then you'll tour them the autumn season, and then tour them the spring season. And our shows were always very physical performance, sort of very visual, had a sort of quite a sort of quirky sense of humour to them, and very visual. And basically we did that from about 97, 98 to 2003. And then in 2003 we created Fib, which is what Bill's talking about. And that piece of work was a complete springboard for us. We actually originally thought that would tour to small-scale, black box, flexible spaces. That piece of work was, because you were asking earlier, it was called Fib, and it was exploring why do we lie. And there was 14 white cubicles and 14 audience members, and inside each cubicle there was a 3-minute experience about why do people lie. So for example, in one of them I was sitting in there as a woman at a restaurant, and you came in and I sort of gave a 3-minute very personal monologue to you about a situation that happened to me at a restaurant. But there was only actually 3 live members in these boxes. In other ones there were a telephone that would ring and you would pick it up, and there was a 3-minute rant of someone who worked in a sort of sales room, sort of telephone sales, of why people always lied to them. Like they were going, oh yeah, I'm just about to go out kind of thing. But it was a very sort of extraordinary 3-minute rant. But anyway, that was a kind of game of, it was like a really big musical chairs experience, because you came out the boxes, then you switched over, and then you went into another box until you'd done all 14 boxes.
And you actually sometimes didn't do all 14 because it was random. So I remember doing it once, and I only did 12 because the boxes which I hadn't done already, I wasn't quick enough in the runaround moment to, which was a very nice thing, and we might come back to that running around when we get on to talking about Trackdown, but maybe
I think
and what happened then in terms of where it was presented and the audience that you were finding.
I think it was I was very fortunate on a weird kind of small world scenario. We were based in Leicester, and opposite me was the comedy festival, Leicester Comedy Festival. Jeff Rowe runs the comedy festival, but his true love is street arts, and he kind of went, you should get this show seen by some street arts promoters. In my head at the time, street arts kind of meant jugglers, walkabout acts. I didn't really know the street art world, so I was like, But anyway, he very fortunately introduced us to Frank in Stockton.
That's Frank Wilson.
And also Maggie Clark.
Yeah.
My surnames are terrible today. Extracts. And amazingly, that year we got into both of those festivals with Fib. And actually, didn't you come and? Have I got you? No, did you come and see it in Leicester?
I came to see it in the car park.
That's
in Leicester.
right. So you saw it really early on.
Really early. I'm always an early adopter.
I think you were the first. I think you were the first street arts promoter that actually saw it in the flesh. Isn't he good? So yeah, and then basically from that point, so we made it in 2003, but you were right, in 2004 it toured street arts festivals, and then from that point on we have not made another theatre show in a theatre space. And so I think what we've kept from something like Fib is a lot of our work now deals with play, and it deals with experience and interactivity. And for us, I think one of our greatest experiences was taking Fib to Stockton. And as some of you may know, Stockton Festival is quite hardcore in its audience. You do really get Mr. Joe Bloggs from the street. And we put Fib into a closed down shop on the High Street in Stockton. And like I say, we didn't make it for a street arts community world or environment. We just made it thinking it would go to your artsy venues. So it was quite a hard piece of work. It wasn't dumbed down in the slightest. And people from Stockton would literally like walk in, it's an hour-long piece as well, walk into that show and suddenly have this very kind of like hard-hitting piece of contemporary work, and they loved it. And I think we've always tried to remind ourselves of that and never kind of dumb down any work that we are putting on the streets. So I think that's our experience.
Yeah.
That's our journey.
Yeah. I'm going to then jump or segue into Stockton, because I know there's a whole body of work which I think you might touch on, which is your Four Seasons, but actually another experience which I had in Stockton, I can't remember which year it was, maybe it was 2007, could it be 2007, but you did a very early tryout of a piece of work called Communication Breakdown, which maybe it's worth just talking about Communication Breakdown as well, because I think that obviously feeds very strongly into the current work.
Yeah, so it was, I think it was right, 2007, you're good with dates. So yeah, 2007, we did it was a real proper pilot R&D, small pot of money piece of work, which was called Communication Breakdown. I have to remember because I've had so many different versions of that piece now. But basically, it was the start of us exploring treasure hunts and games. So basically, the idea of this piece of work is it explored also, the idea was that you went around and collected numbers, and that number ended up forming a telephone number, and the final thing you did at the end was make that call, and that was like the final part in the jigsaw. And the piece of work was exploring communication and how we communicate very differently these days because of increased technology. I mean, that was 2007, so things have really changed since then, but that is also a strand that we're really investigating at the moment, is this idea of communication, and we don't talk as much, we send texts and we tweet and everything's in bite-sized chunks. And yeah, so that piece of work, it started, we had an old-fashioned sort of stall outside, which is how you started it, and you got a piece of paper and a map, not an app.
Some of the same letters.
I know. And I think there was clues, I can't remember, or maybe we just directed you to the places. But you went to the library and you listened to a talking book. You went to HMV and watched a little pop video that we made with the community, with like people in Stockton High Street. You went to a closed down shop where me and Paul were in. You then went to ARC, and Dave did a kind of a sort of tongue-in-cheek performance art kind of presentation.
I thought it was a very interesting visual artist. He had much to say about the world.
Yes, Jeremy Squires.
Yes,
he tends to pop up quite a lot. He's our tongue-in-cheek contemporary artist. And then it all ended. Oh, that's right, because it ended with this exhibition of Jeremy Squires had found this letter. You know when you have, if you're going through a bad time with your partner, and you might write down their 10 positive things and their 10 negative things. So this had happened, but she never sent it. And then this artist found this found piece of interesting paper and then created an exhibition about it. And then the couple went and saw this exhibition, and then all hell broke loose. And the final phone call was this kind of them trying to reconcile that. That's what the story was about.
Thank you.
Yes.
And then just in terms of the audience experience with that piece, any observations there? Perhaps I know after that it was recommissioned by Ivona Frankenet for Festival aan de Werf in Utrecht, and then where else? Then
it went to Singapore. It was recommissioned for Esplanade Theatres in Singapore. So yeah, I think the thing we took out of the Stockton experience was twofold. You had some people who were really interested in the story, and then you would have families who would literally be like, you would just see the kids like trying to find the number. They didn't really care about the story. I mean, you're talking like 8 and under. And they'd just be going, there it is, number 8, write down, okay, come on, let's go. And you just kind of went, oh yeah, this is quite fun. And in Stockton, what was interesting is, yes, we allowed groups of people, so 6, 8 people could do it all together. When we did it in Holland, we kind of got a little bit more, but it was a very arts festival in Holland. We decided that people should do it in pairs. And basically they started off as a couple, and again it was investigating couples and their communication. They started together, and then they actually went to the first location together, and then they separated. So one would follow the English Sam and one would follow Dutch Sam. And then at the end they met at a restaurant, hopefully, if they didn't get lost. And then they would meet up, and they'd both have gone on different routes. Which was really nice when it worked. It was quite scary on the first day when a load of international promoters went out and obviously didn't know Utrecht at all. And as we all know, we all think we can read a map, but we can't really. So quite a few people got lost.
But they were reading again a paper. It was a paper map. Still a paper map.
Paper map.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in Singapore, it was a paper map.
Okay.
Yes.
And so with Trackdown, there's no longer a paper map.
No.
There is interaction, but there is this thing that you hold in your hand, which people call a smartphone. What is the shift in that you feel is happening in terms of moving from these analog paper objects that the audience member has to something which is the thing that you have in your pocket, or you're always touching and interacting with?
Yeah, I think specifically for If, I'd say you kind of came to us and kind of what was really interesting in Communication Breakdown and these kind of games we were playing. And I think the placing of us at Escape and the kind of trying to go for that younger audience, and also the fact that more and more people do have smartphones now. Because at first we never wanted to do it because we didn't want to exclude anyone, but so many people have smartphones now. So we decided to kind of take that risk to kind of go, okay, we can do this as an app on a phone. So yeah, it's been, this is the first time we have created a piece of work with an app on a smartphone. And so far, it's in terms of in terms of that sort of issue about whether or not people do have smartphones. Most people do seem to, and we do have 5 or 6 phones that we can lend as well if people give us deposit. So I don't know if you're asking me has it worked with an app or.
I'm just thinking, what's the difference?
What's the difference?
What's the difference between following, something on a piece of paper?
I think the exciting thing what an app can do is we can install phone calls into it and things like that. It can all be part of the device, whereas with just a piece of paper, we can't give as much creative content. But we are doing Track Down in London this week, and we are using a piece of paper. And I think it's to do with
they are
audience.
very old-fashioned in London.
They're very old-fashioned.
That is true.
Yeah, I think with this commission, we really pushed the technological boundaries, because, to be honest, the app was quite stressful. But the fact that you then used your phone to trigger devices was a whole other thing that we had to get.
But it'd just be interesting. Have a few people. If you've done it, could you let me know? Track Down here, and we've got we've got a few people who've done it. So maybe they'll be able to give some observations about their experiences of doing it. Because it might be worth, because so many people haven't done it.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, giving an overview of and some, maybe not all the stages, but a couple of the what I would call non-digital interactive stages. Okay, so Track Down MK. For a start, the narrative behind it is less about communication with a couple. The narrative behind it is actually the building of Milton Keynes. So that's been really fascinating, because before we got this commission, I didn't really know anything about Milton Keynes, and now I know quite a lot. And it's an absolutely fascinating story. So basically, the whole concept behind it is that you're building a city, which is a very gamey thing to do. People build cities like this Sim City kind of thing. So that's the whole idea. So you basically hear the dream and you hear the master plan, and then basically you have to recruit your team, and then you start sort of building the shopping centre, and then you have a kind of recollection kind of moment. So that's the narrative. But actually what happens is you start off and you download the app. If you can't do that in advance, that's fine, you can do it when you turn up, and then you hear, not from the boss, you hear from the sort of right-hand man, this sort of, and it's very kind of filmic. It does really play with this game aesthetic. It's kind of quite over the top. It's got a kind of 70s kind of retro filmic vibe to it. So you hear from the dream, and then the first clue is that you have to find a telephone booth in City Limits, which I don't know if many of you know. It's like this crazy arcade in Escape. So you go there. How many people have been in City Limits within Escape? Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then after that, you're told to track down the contract, which is a very tricky thing. I think it took this lady quite a while to find the contract, which actually is a film poster in the. I maybe shouldn't tell you this, so I'm giving it all away. But that is quite tricky. Everything is really disguised to fit into its surroundings really well. So people do find that one. And then you sort of do an interview moment with the boss. And then you go on a treasure hunt, an old-fashioned treasure hunt, in the shops in Escape. So you're looking for things in the shop windows. And again, quite tricky. And then you go... Oh, and then we have our sort of 1970s area, which it's been very popular. It's been the most popular stage. I think people have quite enjoyed that area.
Well, you sit down on a nice leather Chesterfield.
Maybe there's
that's quite enjoyable in this hot summer we're having.
And then you go into the heart of the arcade area. We created an arcade machine. And I should probably explain the sort of clever thing with the phone is that basically at these places you plug your phone into a headphone socket, and then your phone becomes the game's control pad in a sense. So in some of these, like the arcade machine, you either have to press pink, yellow, green or blue button that's on your phone, and when you press that sends a sound which that the computer picks up on knowing whether you've hit the right button or the wrong button, kind of thing. And that happens everywhere. So you plug your phone into the phone booth and you dial the telephone number, and then that activates the recording. And then you have a kind of quiet moment by the weird tree in City Limits. It's your arcade. But yeah, so that's what it is.
And is it theatre?
I think it's I think all of our work always does have a very strong narrative to it. You know, like digital art, kind of contemporary art, sometimes, you know, doesn't have a narrative. I would say our work always has quite a strong narrative at its heart, and that's very important to us. I know a lot of people, when we moved into the street arts world, everyone thought we were visual artists, which we thought took as quite a big compliment, because we're not at all. And we did study theatre, and then they'd kind of go, oh, you're quite good performers for visual artists, kind of thing. We were like, thanks, no, we're from theatre. So I think theatre is our roots, and we do work in galleries and we do work outdoors, but I think, I would always say, is it theatre? I just think it has a core narrative within a gaming structure.
Okay. At that point, I'm just going to see if anybody out there would like to participate, and if there are any comments, observations, or questions. And we're going to use a mic because, as with all of the series and the talks, we're being filmed at the moment, and that means that we can, after the festival, we can post this up so it becomes a resource for the future, you know, in terms of students and whatever being interested. So when Sarah has got the mic sorted, I will ask, who have we got? We've got Christian. And if you just say who you are and then, you know, talk or...
Christian Payne, Documentally Online. Did you find the use of an app within this particular project restricting as to how flexible you could be in the environment? Was the app written specifically for that space? Will it migrate to other places?
It's written specifically for Milton Keynes, so it is literally, it will only ever be relevant to when this festival's on. But in answer to that, the reason why we decided to have these moments where we plugged our phone in was to give us more flexibility, because when you submit an app, you obviously have to put it in quite far in advance, and we were concerned that we might want to alter the main content, so things like the phone calls or what else is in there, the radio moment and the video moments. We decided to do those separately so that we wouldn't have that problem of because once the app is made, you can make small changes, but you can't make that many. So I wouldn't say that it was because we got around it that way. I think the app, in terms of, I think the issues of doing an app is that you do have to work far in advance. And I think also we kind of really wanted to target quite a young audience. From sort of, our target audience was 14 to 26. From our kind of brief being at this festival, actually you find that younger age group, that 14 to maybe 18, don't download apps that much. They're much more, they tend to have Blackberries more. and it takes a while for them to download the app takes time, and young people don't like spending time. It's all about kind of has to be quick, has to be instant, and downloading an app in Escape which hasn't got great 3G takes time. That's the annoying thing about the app so far, I would say.
Any other comments, questions, observations? Jackie here in the front.
Thank you. Jackie Scott, participant in this game, probably with the longest record for completing it. I think it took me nearly an hour and a half. Had a sore finger from poking it at the phone. It was a very particular building that you were in. It is apparently one of the most visited destinations in the UK, but it has a particular flavour about it and draws a particular crowd. Did any aspect of the building influence the outcome of what you did and the way the audience enjoyed it?
Yeah, I think I mean, it's very gamey. You know, it's, a lot of people kind of say it's got a very Grand Theft Auto kind of aesthetic, which is a very popular game. And I think the arcade area probably had a big impact on us. I did really want to incorporate the ski slope, but I just couldn't think of a way of incorporating that into it, because it is crazy. You know, you go around the corner and suddenly people are skiing, and that's a great thing to watch. But I couldn't think of how to do that. But yes, I think it did, and I think we were very conscious of we are going to be placed here. And if you think about, like, at the starting point, the listening booth and that kind of aesthetic, it's very slick, and I think that is a direct response of being placed in Escape. I think one of the things we didn't realise was how Escape also changes. At sort of 8 o'clock at night, it kind of starts to get much more leery, and that's something we didn't particularly factor in. If I'd known that, I would have slightly changed things or changed times or something. But yeah, it's an interesting place.
Anybody else got anything to ask? Monica.
I was quite interested in the subject matter, because you said it was aimed at 14 to 24-year-olds, and I was just interested in terms of the feedback that you've had, if you've had 14 to 24-year-olds, as to the subject matter and whether that's helped them.
The subject matter is interesting because we purposely didn't mention Milton Keynes explicitly until right at the end. And right at the end we kind of say, some people think of this town as a town of roundabouts and concrete cows. Then you're going to know it's Milton Keynes that you've just been building. But we did purposely do that, and we really fought with this idea of kind of, okay, we're doing a piece of work which is about building Milton Keynes, yet we are aiming at a 14 to 24-year-olds, and we don't want to make this worthy, and we don't want them to go, because every 14-year-old thinks their hometown is boring and crap. So we were kind of very conscious of how we try to make this cool within that age group. But in terms of feedback, we had some town planners do it. That was brilliant. And they were like...
From which town?
They didn't say, which is... I know, I should have asked. I don't know why, but they were so kind of like... That was a complete surprise. I'm a town planner and I didn't realise it had anything to do with town planning. Brilliant, it was amazing. But they were more 20s and 30s. I think it's gone down really well with that age group. The sort of 20s, 30s age group have really enjoyed the game, enjoyed the narrative, comfortable with using a smartphone, comfortable with downloading apps. And then the other nice combination is the kind of dad, mum with 12-year-old child. And that's a really nice combination, because again they kind of both get something slightly different out of it, and then they have that conversation at the end about Milton Keynes, and then you get that I didn't know that. It's kind of and it's a little bit. I mean, I felt, because obviously we did lots and lots of research, but then you only use 10% of that research in the final piece. So I was kind of quite conscious of, oh God, I hope people from Milton Keynes think that we've done enough about the history, and there's enough content in there because of that 14 to 26 catchment, and trying to make it fun and exciting.
I'll ask one more, Bill. Would you have liked to have used, or did you think at any point about using live interactions as opposed to all being digital or flat kind of clues?
We didn't think about it. It just becomes kind of cost. Live people are expensive, but we did it does work really well. We did it in Holland right at the end when I said that the couple met in the restaurant. You were then greeted by a waiter who lots of people didn't realise was a performer, and they basically, you got a menu at the end and you read from the menu, and then the waiter came over and asked if you wanted to look at the specials, and then at that point you chose one of the specials, and depending on what special you chose depended on the kind of whether they lived happy ever after or whatever, kind of said, and you got different options, and then the performer would start very much as a waiter and then would kind of become more of a performer. And that was really lovely, and everyone always enjoys those live performance moments. But I think with this one what we were really investigating was that technological side of things. So no, we didn't think about live performance.
Can I just jump in and ask another question, which is about the I suppose it's about the disguise. The fact that, you know, this narrative has now been planted throughout Escape, and it's a hidden narrative. So, you know, some of the bigger set pieces like the living room with the Chesterfield and the 70s wallpaper and the radio is obviously very obvious, and you know, it's not normally there, so that isn't so hidden. But how do you think it is for people doing they're on the trail, and other, you know, and the normal life of Escape is going on? Is that anything?
I think people really like that. I think that's kind of people kind of like the fact that they're doing this experience, and it's kind of secretive. That tends to be something that people say, and they'll then the next time they'll go to the cinema, they'll see the contract, and you know, kind of go, yeah, I know, you know. And it's like we're doing this one this week at the National, and we've created a flyer for a fictitious play called The Fortress on the Thames, and it's just really funny. The staff reaction is just, they're just like, oh, that's really clever. Oh, that's really weird. Oh, everyone's going to ask for tickets for it. And I'm like, oh, brilliant. You know, we could end up with like a play in the main house. It's my sneaky way. But it's so convincing. This flyer I should have bought. It's so convincing. We've absolutely copied it. So on the back it's got ticket prices, but actually when you read it, it was like with the flyer you got in the cinema, when you actually read it, you realise it's not. But it's the same with this flyer for the show at the National. Instead of, you know, it's, yeah, so it's fun. I think people kind of go, no, that's all. I'm in on that.
They're
joke.
Inside, yeah. And I don't know if you've got any of them with you or if they're on your phone. I just wondered if anybody at the end, you ask people to leave within, is it 140 characters?
Yes.
Or you ask people to leave, what's the question that you ask?
Now you're asking Bill. I think I asked, but people haven't really done that.
They
actually.
haven't?
No,
Okay.
people have given a response to the show, and I'm not just saying it, has been overwhelmingly positive.
So people
And-
say that was great. talking
Yeah,
about the
people
show,
say
but
great fun. They say great fun. and stuff about Milton Keynes. It's great. They kind of go great fun, really good game, and something about really like being very positive about Milton Keynes. Either kind of I didn't know that about Milton Keynes, or this game has made me. I think someone actually said this game has made me feel even prouder about living and working in Milton Keynes. That was their response.
Yeah.
Which is kind of great.
Yeah.
That's job done for me.
And you and we're collecting all of that
Yes.
to have a sort of
Yeah, they send us an email.
yeah.
Unless they borrow one of our phones,
Yes.
and then they can't.
Okay.
So we will have less
Yeah.
than.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyone who
Yeah.
uses their own phone, we keep.
Yeah. I'm going to wrap it up, but just has anybody else got anything sort of burning that they would like to say or ask or back to Jackie?
Okay, that was the first attempt with an app. Where next? Where's your creative journey taking you next?
Interesting. I think it's always never asked that question straight after we've just launched a new show, because we normally at that point go, never doing anything with an app ever again, and never. Okay, Paul literally was on the way back was going, what are we going to do next, Esther? And I could tell the answer was nothing to do with technology, and but that's just how we're feeling now. I think we will. I think the app thing's really interesting, and I think even on a quite a boring level, but we did talk about this quite a lot, about whether or not you charge to download the app rather than charge to do the show. And I do think that will be something that will happen more and more, especially with this type of work. And I think that's a really interesting way of a different income stream and all of that. But we do have another project. It's not that we're obsessed with communication at the moment. We did a project in Germany this year called Call Me When You Get Here, which is a classic phrase of, nobody meets anyone at the clock tower anymore. You just kind of go, I'll just give you a call when you get here. And this person didn't turn up. And then we went on this whole journey of paranoia and, I'm just obsessed with my phone. It's fine that she hasn't phoned me in the last 5 minutes kind of thing, or he hasn't phoned me in the last 5 minutes. So that's probably where we're going next, is to develop this piece called Call Me When You Get Here. And that I think that particularly really suits a phone, because it is all about that kind of, we are obsessed. Well, we're quite obsessed with our mobile phones. Even if you're not obsessed with the technology within it, there is this, we have completely changed on how we communicate with people, and how we do get paranoid if someone hasn't contacted you, for 24 hours or 5 minutes. But yeah, that's where we're going next.
Well, Esther, I'd just like to thank you. I'd like to thank you and Paul, the company, for working with us over, I think, at least more than a year. I think the conversations actually have been a year and a quarter or something, and I think that's been a really interesting process, and we're really pleased with where we got to with Trackdown. So thank you very much for working with us on the commission for IF. And thank you for making time in your schedule to come up from London, where you're installed. When do you open at the National Theatre?
This Saturday.
Oh, you've got loads of time then.
So yeah, and please do go and do Trackdown whilst you're here. It is good fun, and don't worry about the technology. If you do feel that you're a bit of a technophobe, it's not that scary, I promise.
And they could always beat Jackie's record of an hour and a half.
Yeah.
They could take an hour and 3/4. So just on that, thank you very much.
No.